Hello out to all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time here in listening into another Pitch for Switch video. And this time, firstly, I'd like to apologize because it's been so long since I've done one of these. Secondly, I had an interesting idea of TellTale Games and Nintendo teaming up to do some story-based games that are based on Nintendo's classic franchises. And the first one that comes to mind, because it's like Nintendo's flagship title, is Super Mario Brothers. And what I call this is TellTale Games Nintendo Legacy Stories. So TellTale Games Nintendo Legacy Stories, Super Mario Brothers, Mushroom Kingdom. So, firstly, I want the story to start off with Mario and Luigi just being normal plumbers in the actual world, the normal world. And they end up with a job where they have to go down to the sewers because there's a plumbing issue that they come across, and then they find Koopas and different Mushroom Kingdom enemies coming out of the pipes. This is Mario Brothers, the arcade game. This is where this portion of this part of the original first chapter would start out. After you play and deal with Mario and Luigi's bantering, because this section could be short as heck. The whole first world of Super Mario Brothers is short anyway, so you can kind of tack this in there just like as the beginning. Once they've cleared out all the Koopas and other enemies and Goombas and stuff, they'd find the warp pipe and accidentally fall down into it while they're like just looking at it, trying to figure out what's going on with it. And they fall down into it, then they end up in World 1-1 of the Mushroom Kingdom and come across Bowser's minions and his underlings taking over the Mushroom Kingdom. Being that Mario and Luigi have just recently dealt with the Koopas and Goombas and other enemies, they feel kind of like they can help out here. So they start to take down different enemies along the stage's paths. And one thing I would love them to do, like between each section, because each section would be a stage, do the the original the black screen, but put both Mario and Luigi on it in 8-bit form on that screen with like an X and a 1 next to them, and have at the top of the screen what world they're in, like World 1-1, World 1-2, World 1-3, World 1-4. You get what I'm saying? And each chapter is a world in the original Mario game, with the first chapter including the original first 4 levels of Super Mario Brothers, as well as the sewer area of Mario Brothers. So it's all kind of cohesive. From there, you'd have, and this would be interesting because you'd have both Mario and Luigi. You're using both of them. Have them running through, like, what choices you make is how they go through the level. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of quick time events, but you'll also have them back and forth with a little bit of talking. This will probably be the one situation where I think it's acceptable for Mario to just have a normal standard dialogue, him and Luigi, because you don't normally get that out of them. I think in this situation it's perfectly fine because it's a story-based game like this. And it's not like we don't have media where you have Mario and Luigi talking that is bearable, because it isn't bearable. I mean, even though this show back in the day is kind of cheesy and all, but at least the voices you could picture those voices to those characters. So I mean, obviously you do something updated that actually fits with the current way the characters sound, but you get what I'm saying. Each game, like this actually in and of itself would be pretty decent. Like, you purchase the whole game for like $30, and if you want to do individual chapters, then $5 a piece. I'd love for them to be able to find a way to keep in the alternate paths, so that way if you want to like do world skipping, you can. But that would probably require all of the chapters to be bought, and for all of them to be ready for people to get. So it might require TellTale Games to do something that they're not used to doing with story-based games, and that's putting all of it together before they actually release it. And then just give the 2 different options for people to purchase it, so that way if somebody just wants to get in, they just want to get their feet wet with it, then go ahead and put down $5 and get the first chapter. or or whatever they're going to do with it, or whatever they would do with it. Not like this is set in stone. Um, that way, people who want to play it and they want to have the full experience of playing from beginning to the very end and through all 8 worlds, they can. Or if somebody wants to play it like they would play it on NES, they can skip worlds and jump to different points in the story where once you skip certain things, certain other things don't happen, and there's no dialogue to reference things that would have happened if you had gone through those levels. So I mean, there's a lot of work that would go into it, but it'd be so cool and interesting at the same time. And I think this is something that people who are new to Mario, as well as people who've been a fan of Mario since the dawn of Mario, would really appreciate. Like, newer people could get to know the characters, and they can actually get to know the story that launched the franchise, and then other people who know this story already can get a new perspective on it. So to me, that's actually a really good idea. But I'm going to move right along into the next one. So hold on a second. And the second item that will be up for discussion is Star Fox Heroes of Kyneria. Now this I could see being like just like an entire story around the whole first Star Fox game, like playing through all of the original missions. I think that this also ended with 8 missions. I think it was 8 missions. So it could end on 8 different chapters, and then there could be bonus chapters for like side missions and things that could be additional. I don't remember how long the old Star Fox was. It's been so long since I played the original game. But I mean, they can also base it off of the current Star Fox Zero release, and you do the story that way, because I think that's the most up-to-date version of the story. And if Telltale Telltale and Nintendo could get together and they could commission it to look exactly like the Star Fox anime that they released before Star Fox Zero came out, that'd be awesome. Because I would be so into that. I'd be ready to play that, because one, the art style alone would make it beautiful as all hell. And they can get the same voice cast back together and just add to that for additional characters. It'd be set. Like, cause then at that point, all they have to do is work on the story and get all that together, and then have the animation teams work on what they want the characters to do in certain situations, which would be awesome. Like, and I personally would love it. And I think this would be a treat for people who are true Star Fox fans, and then people who are just, casual Star Fox fans who just kind of know about the series. They could also get into it too. I mean, especially even those that couldn't play Star Fox Zero because it was apparently too complicated for them even on easy. I'm sorry, I had to do that. But I think, honestly, this would be a good way to portray the series. And it could be a jumping off point for something bigger for the series if Nintendo were to choose to continue working with Telltale and do more story-based games around Star Fox. So, I mean, just personally to me, I think that it would be worth it. It would be cool. It would be honestly a great thing for this series, and it'd be something that could reinvigorate it in a way that hasn't really been done. Something that hasn't really been attempted with it. So, I mean, that's just my perspective on it. I personally, again, I would love to see it happen. I think it would be awesome. And I'd be behind it 100%. So, and I think Star Fox deserves the limelight. Even though people want to pretend that they know what Star Fox is and they don't. I do think that Star Fox as a franchise, it deserves to be in the limelight. And this would be a cool way to do it. But I'm going to move on to the next thing. Yeah, this part was a little bit shorter than the Mario part, but moving on. And the third item up for discussion is The Legend of Zelda: Hylia's Chosen Hero. Now, this one is more or less because I'm curious as to the happenings of the actual first, hero, his story. What happened from when he met Hylia to when they encountered Demise for the first time, because I don't think that his first fight with him was the end-all be-all of what happened with him and how he ended up dying. I believe he encountered Demise multiple times, and then their final fight is the one that he sustained injuries enough to kill him. That we know. Like, I kind of would like to know how all that went down. And that's a story that would probably have to take a long time, because you, one, have to build up that hero from his beginning. You also have to have him meet Helia and have their bond form, which is going to take a little bit of time. I wouldn't want any of that stuff to be rushed into one chapter. Like, give it like 2 to 3 chapters per situation. Like the beginning of his story, his origin, make that 3 chapters. Make him dealing with Helia, make that 3 chapters. Then the run-in with Demise, and up to the conclusion, make that like 4 chapters. So you have 3, 3, and 4, and end up with like a 10-chapter story. I mean, it would be worth it, because The Legend of Zelda has such a deep lore, and this could show you where everything began, like with the Zoras, the Gorons, Naruto, the Deku, like everything. It's just like there's so much that you can go back to and just find, and they could build up a lot of stuff. They can give like the very beginning of everything. I mean, Skyward Sword, as far as the games are concerned, is the very first game storyline wise, but there was obviously a story before Skyward Sword. So I kind of want to see how that played out. I want to see where all of these characters, like all of the entities that these characters became, where they originally collided, and how that led to everything else happening. And I think that's actually something that would be really cool to have. Just like a full blown out story where you get these characters, you get their interactions, you get to see who they started out as, because we know not each and every Link and each and every Zelda are exactly the same, but their essence started off at these places. So that's where I kind of want to see how they did it. I want to know how all that played out, and I think that's a worthy story to give everyone. And yeah, again, it's got to be at least 10 chapters long. At least 10 chapters long. Because you want to get involved with these characters. You want to get to know them. You want to be able to be affected by them. And unfortunately, with The Legend of Zelda, with this big of a scope of the lore it is, something that's like a 5 or 6 chapter thing is not going to work for it. It's just not. So you're going to need at least like 10 chapters to give a proper story for this. So, but that's really it, because I'm just really curious and interested in seeing how all that played out. But that's it for The Legend of Zelda, and I'm going to move on to the final thing. Okay, and the last item in the queue is Fire Emblem: The First War. Now, me personally, I just want to see what they would make out of this, because we literally don't actually know much, if anything, about the very first war that happens in the Fire Emblem chronology. And honestly, personally, I kind of want to know, because it seems like an awesome concept. Now, this is something that can be long and drawn out like Game of Thrones is, and it's not like TellTale Games doesn't have experience with that type of story, because they've done a Game of Thrones TellTale Games series. So for Fire Emblem, it would be pretty much the same thing, though it would have more fantasy elements, and it would likely have to be a bit longer, but I think it could work, and it would be brilliant for Nintendo to say, hey, we'll commission you guys to do 3 seasons of this, 8 chapters per season. So you end up with a 24-chapter story. And honestly, that would be cool. I would be so highly interested in that. And I think it would really do wonders to expand the lore of the Fire Emblem series. And I am personally very interested in what happened back then, and the different races that may have died off, or how different races got together and intermingled, things of that nature, because it will all have to have started here. and it could lead to different lines of lineages and the different legendary blades that each kingdom has, and different characters that wield them. It could tell you the origin of all of these different weapons and where they come from. So there's a lot of things that could really be done with this that could really expand the full overall story of Fire Emblem, and it could give people a lot clearer picture as to where the characters that they who they know and love came from. And I personally am definitely for that. I would love to see that. Like there's nothing there's nothing I'd rather see when it comes down to